Identifying AI art these days is starting to feel like the rules for identifying the Fae in old tales. Count the fingers, count the knuckles, count the teeth, check the shadows, and under no circumstances should you make any deals with their kind. Generative AI has managed to embed itself into every corner of our day-to-day lives. It's already being used in ads, books, t-shirts, and even traditional crafts like crochet, embroidery, and cross-stitch. It's getting harder and harder to avoid and identify, so let's talk about that. How to spot pattern mills and AI cross-stitch so you don't get scammed. How bad can it possibly be? So, what's wrong with using AI imagery for crafting? How bad can it possibly be? Pretty bad, as it turns out. Designing cross-stitch patterns is an art in its own right, and you, as the consumer, deserve to get what you paid for. Sellers using AI are taking advantage of people who don't know any better in order to make a cheap buck by selling shoddy patterns. It feels especially bad knowing that there are beginners out there who want to try a new hobby only to get suckered into a poorly made pattern and get too frustrated to continue. It's lose, lose, lose all around. People have all kinds of opinions when it comes to the rising popularity of generative AI and chatbots. Generative AI is theft of intellectual property on an industrial scale. All AI art is stolen in the sense that it was trained on existing work without consent. The only ethical generative AI will be one that is opt-in and gives fair residuals to every artist, writer, photographer, and voice sampled, and corporations have already admitted that that would be defeating the point. The point is theft. The point is that it's free. There's no such thing as original artwork made by an algorithm trained on non-consenting artists. In the craft community, the consensus is that, at the very least, pattern mills and designers should disclose when they use AI so buyers can make an educated decision without pixel hunting through listings. With that said, let's talk about pattern mills. What are pattern mills? A pattern mill is a shop that mass produces cross-stitch charts with minimal effort or creativity. The goal is to put out as many patterns as possible because more patterns means more sales. Pattern mill designs are usually full coverage, meaning you stitch everywhere with no negative space. They often have a lot of confetti, or random stitches of a single color, and they lean on imagery that they know will sell, like Disney, Marvel, Lord of the Rings, Pokemon, anime, and fan art. They also price patterns far lower than equivalent patterns in size and detail from legitimate designers. Most pattern mills are not selling a copy of someone else's pattern chart. What they do is take an image from the internet or another designer's listing and run that through a charting software to get a pattern. This results in low-quality patterns that won't produce a good finished piece due to having too many colors, poor color matching, and hard-to-read charts. And because these shops pump out so many patterns, it floods search results, making it harder for genuine creators to be seen. Pattern mills existed even before AI. Scammers used to snag images off the internet and run them through image-to-chart converters. AI has amplified this trend, but the core idea is the same. Lots of designs, little human effort. How do AI pattern generators work? There's a lot of confusion around the difference between pattern generators and generative AI. When we talk about AI patterns, are we talking about patterns with images made from generative AI like Dolly or Midjourney, or using autoconverters like Flosscross or WinStitch? While some people use the term interchangeably, we mean the former. An AI pattern isn't a chart made by AI, it's a chart made from an AI-generated image. A pattern mill could use both methods, taking an AI image and converting it into a chart. But using a converter alone doesn't imply the design was AI created. The majority of designers use a pattern software to create their charts. Tools like Flosscross or Stitch Fiddle are algorithmic, not generative. The pattern conversion can be good or bad. With most human-made charts, patterns are cleaned up to remove confetti, refine color choices, choose appropriate symbols, and remove barely used colors. With pattern mills, they convert the image and don't make any corrections. When using image to pattern algorithms, you input a photo and the software outputs a grid of colors. While you can just use the default settings, these converters usually have options to refine the algorithm, such as choosing what size you want and how many colors to use. More colors will make your pattern look more like your photo, but it will also make it harder to stitch. Fewer colors means less detailed shading, and some colors will be lost. Some converters even have options to choose between presets, like photo and clip art, where the photo preset will use dithering to give a more realistic image, and the clip art preset tries to keep colors solid. In WinStitch's documentation, they even say, do not assume the first thing you try is the best you can do. If the results are not what you expect, try other settings and sizes. While pattern generators are not AI, chances are if an AI image is being used, the seller is skipping the cleanup, resulting in a poor quality pattern. Is there an easy way to spot AI patterns? So how do you avoid getting scammed? Is there an easy way to spot a pattern mill or AI designs? The short answer is not really. However, there are absolutely signs you can look for that might indicate an AI pattern, but without the shop owner openly declaring that they use generative AI or don't test their patterns, it's impossible to know for sure. With that being said, here are some possible flags to avoid AI patterns. Photos of finished pieces. Are there stitched examples of the designer's patterns? If a shop has no photos of stitched pieces or works in progress across their shop, listings, social media, or website, reviews don't count here, I would consider that a yellow flag. As a buyer, you have no guarantee that the designer is testing that their work is fun to stitch, making the symbols easy to read, or putting consideration into the colors. Again, it's not definitive, as many designers do exclusively use mockups, but pattern mills generally lack photos of stitched work, unless they're using stolen images of other people's finished pieces, which is a whole other topic. To compare, here are two shops without social media, websites, or stitched pieces. Saving Graces by Elizabeth Spurlock only has mockups and is not active on social media as far as I can find. But they have an appropriate number of patterns to shop age, and all of their patterns have a similar flavor. This shop looks legit to me. On the other hand, Cross Stitch World Co. not only has no stitched photos or social media, but there are no in progress or stitched images, no consistent style, and these ones are without a doubt AI generated. I would consider this a red flag. Symmetry. If the design is supposed to be symmetrical, is it actually? AI really struggles with symmetry and repetition. When checking if a pattern is legit, look closely to see if the pattern is symmetrical or if there are small differences on each side. Take, for example, this mini Celtic bee sold by Heaven and Earth Designs. It's labeled as a 250 by 250 pixel piece with 90 colors, which is quite large. The description lists the copyright as Malcolm Watson 2024. Now, I was curious because this piece looks AI to me. Nothing in it is symmetrical, and the motifs are quite melty looking. They only have a JPEG of the art unless you click on this tiny low contrast button down here, where you can see that the chart is just as messy and looks nothing like the image. So I found Malcolm Watson's artist profile on Heaven on Earth Design's website, and here's what he has to say. My work is an exploration of all that surrounds me, both emotionally and physically. I am also inspired by the beauty of nature and certain cultures that express spiritual meanings and beliefs. My passion for the Celtic culture comes from my ancestral heritage and family from various parts of Europe. And it's AI. The whole page of designs is AI. Now, Heaven and Earth Designs has a reputation, which I'll save for another video, but even without that context, this chart is a mess. For what a symmetrical chart should look like, take a look at the Retro Stitcher's Your Mother pattern. The piece is 170 by 150 stitches with 30 colors. The border and motifs are perfectly symmetrical, the berries around the border are the same shape, and they even included a stitched photo after the mock-up. TLDR, symmetry is a green flag. Chart size. Cross-stitch is not a fast-paced hobby. When you've bought a large pattern, it might take you months or even years to finish. When the intent is to spend that long on a piece, you expect the pattern to be of high quality. To spend months stitching a design just to have it look blurry at the end is such a frustrating experience. When converting an image into a pattern mills don't care about size. They care about the mock-up looking real. So the size of these pieces are often massive, but large patterns do not guarantee pattern mill. Consider the size and number of colors. Does it feel like a human touch was involved? Or could it just be a computer mapping the closest colors available? Fewer shops specialize in large patterns, but they do exist. Scarlet Quince is a shop that designs large detailed charts like this one at 388 by 572 pixels with 119 colors, including blends. And they are a legitimate pattern company. Large pieces can have hundreds of colors without being AI generated. Let's test your intuition. Which of these patterns do you think might be from a pattern mill? A. Epic Pokemon Gen 1, 256 by 450 pixels with 105 colors. B. Coastal Red Dragon, 350 by 270 pixels, 68 colors. C. Christmas Animals, 333 by 422 pixels, 129 colors. Or D. Scottish Terrier in a Garden, 550 by 550 pixels with 86 colors. If you guessed D, you would be correct. D is AI slot from Artecy, and oh my god, the PDF is more than 133 pages. This piece was generated using Midjourney. There's this particular look that you get with some AI models that, if you can train your eyes, becomes much easier to spot. They can generate something that looks like a high-quality photorealistic image until you start looking at the details. This is not how flower petals grow. Leaves overlap in ways that defy logic, and many leaf clusters have no visible stems connecting them to anything. The dog's irises are slightly different sizes and shapes. The nostrils are melty, plus the front paws aren't rotated correctly. Here's what a real Scottie looks like for an anatomical comparison. To me, this really shows that the hindquarters are at the wrong angle and how strange the tongue, nose, and eyes look. A is a legitimate pattern from the Pokemon Generations collection by Lord Libidan, ServoStitches, and Shadow Nova. Each pattern is the same size and uses the same 105 master colors. B is a legitimate pattern from Unconventional Cross Stitch with original art by Mathysphere. C is a legitimate pattern from Scarlet Quince with original art by Molly Brett. Try to remember that ultimately, cross-stitch is pixel art. Large pixel images are incredibly difficult and time-consuming to produce by hand. This is not a surefire way to determine poor quality patterns, but it works for a lot of illegitimate shops. Quantity. How many patterns are listed? Real shops don't design thousands of huge patterns in a year. Pattern mills are able to produce an ungodly amount of patterns in a limited time span because they don't care about quality. They're just trying to make easy money with little effort, and by listing hundreds or thousands of patterns, they flood search results, making it harder to find legit sellers. Pattern bundles are another yellow flag here. If a shop is selling 4 full coverage pieces for $5, chances are it's a mill. Some legit shops do sell bundles, but the majority of these pattern bundles are mills. A legit example of a shop with lots of patterns is Mama Witch Cross Stitch by Catherine Kislova. She's been selling on Etsy for 5 years and has 311 patterns at the time of this video. Her patterns have a similar flavor, she's got stitched examples, and she's active on social media. Green flag. For a red flag example, let's go back to Cross Stitch World Co. They've only been on Etsy 3 years and they have 658 full coverage patterns. That's more than double Mama Witch Cross Stitch in almost half the time. Red flag. Quantity can be a weaker indication here as some shops are coalitions between artists or full-time designers, but quantity over quality can be a good metric to check. Price. How much are their patterns? Obviously prices will vary by region, and the examples listed in this section are in the Canadian dollar, so your mileage may vary, but the core of the point stands. If someone is selling massive full coverage patterns for $5, it's likely a mill. If shops are selling a bundle of full coverage patterns for $10, it's likely a mill. They can charge so little because they put so little time and effort into generating the artwork and pattern. A quality chart for a large or intricate pattern often costs upwards of $20. This also means that pattern mill patterns are almost always on sale. Legit designers run sales too, so this can be a weaker indicator, but if a shop is running a sale on their entire store year-round, it's worth checking for some other flags. The pattern might be cheap, but your final result is going to be really expensive, frustrating to make, and might not even end up looking like you hoped it would. If a listing feels too good to be true, it probably is. Let's look at some wizards, shall we? This dark wizard pattern is from Unconventional Cross Stitch, with art licensed from Ed Beard Jr. Unconventional Cross Stitch focuses on large, full coverage designs from licensed artists, and at the time of this video, they have a zero tolerance AI policy. The design is 353 by 500 with 107 colors, and is priced at $21.62 at the time of recording. This is a fair price for a large, full coverage design. Oh look, it's Heaven and Earth Designs again. You're telling me that they have a wizard pattern too? Well, let's see it. Oh, Oh, that's AI again. That is an AI knockoff Gandalf. Cool. Cool. What is happening with that staff? His irises are melty, nothing about the way his hair is moving makes any sense, and look how tall his forehead is. It's so uncanny. Okay, yeah, so this design is copyrighted by Dragon Muse Artworks, and let's take a look at their profile, and yeah, that's all AI. They even declare it in their bio. So this slob is 575 by 862, which is massive, with 90 colors priced at $19, but it's on sale for $9.50. What a steal! Let's do some math. Heaven and Earth Designs provides the floss chart before purchase, so we can take a look at how many skeins we need. Oh look, this color only has one stitch, and only 58 skeins of black. Neat! So if we add this up, this design is 196 skeins and 495,468 stitches. For the floss alone, the cost of this pattern is $245 at $1.25 per skein. A pattern of this size would take me approximately 708 days to stitch, and that's me stitching full-time 7 hours a day at about 100 stitches an hour. When you factor in custom fabric and the cost of the pattern, you're spending around $300 and at least 2 years of your life on this. An AI slop wizard is not worth that. Check the reviews. It may sound obvious, but check the reviews. Are there progress photos or completed projects that show if the project is doable? Are people expressing excitement to continue? Those are good signs. Some images might reveal if a pattern is low quality. For instance, this was a 5-star review from someone on a pattern mill, but if we look at the stitched finish, we can see all the confetti, JPEG aliasing, weird lines, and melty bees. I personally would view that as a red flag. Compare this to a shop like Needlemind or Layer with reviews for their patterns. Super easy to do and to follow. Took me only 9 hours to do this one. Such a beautiful and fun pattern, super easy to read, and it's gonna make a beautiful gift for my friend. Both of these reviews mention specifics and include a stitched finish. You can see that the finishes match the listing image, and the designs look clear and intentional. Green flags. If there are no photos, you can also look at the wording of text reviews. Are the reviews talking about that pattern specifically, or is the review brief and general? Easy to use pattern, great quality. Perfect downloads with 3 files, great sale price. Everything is fine. I recommend it to everyone. You'll see these kind of reviews on legit shops as well. Not everyone likes writing reviews, and it can be hard to word something when you haven't had the chance to stitch it yet. Etsy unfortunately has a time limit for people to review a product in. At the time of this video, the review window is 100 days from the date the digital file was downloaded. For people buying patterns in bulk or working on large pieces, that is not a realistic deadline for people to try out the pattern, let alone finish it. And it's normal for a stitcher to want to wait on leaving a review until they've finished the piece. So you don't need to blacklist for vague reviews, but it's good to check for signs of human life. Still working on it, but the pattern is great. Thank you. The negative reviews can also be very telling. Do not buy this pattern. It's poorly made, possibly AI. Just zoom in to see the strange color noise, especially with the flowers in the border and weird inconsistencies, like with the right arm or left leg of the lighter knight. The color palette was clearly not tested. The colors used for shading is way too similar. I unfortunately realized too late. This shop has a 4.9 star rating on Etsy. Quantity of skeins was listed in wrong count per DMC's thread length. I tried several times to get in touch with seller, to no avail. Opened a case, and they escalated it to a refund. Not what I asked for. Now I'll just have to best guess for the correct skein count. I asked if it was a Pattern Keeper download, but it wasn't. All the symbols needed to be inputted. No answer to my email either. This shop also has a 4.9 star rating on Etsy. Etsy doesn't let you sort by lowest reviews, so I recommend checking a few pages of reviews when you're interested in a potential pattern. Specialty stitches. Does the pattern include any specialty stitches? Pattern converters don't automatically add things like backstitch, beads, French knots, or blends. So if you see them, that's usually a sign a human has put in some work. It doesn't mean the image wasn't generated using AI, but it's proof that someone cared enough to refine it. Let's look at some princesses. Make It Pink by Ashley May works with licensed artists to create advanced patterns with beadwork, backstitch, and blends. In this piece, designed by artist Hannah Alexander, you can see the care Ashley put into translating the line work and the textures. This piece is 180 by 360 stitches with 35 colors, currently priced at $20. This is a beautifully intricate handmade project. And here's one that's the opposite of that. This Rapunzel pattern is all melty. You can't make out any detail in her dress, the circle is completely wonky, and do not even get me started on whatever is going on with her hair. They didn't even bother to fill in the small areas of white. The eyes, her collar, and his arm are unstitched, which is a weird choice. This piece is 150 by 160 stitches, using 11 colors for $9.36. I know which one I would pick, and it's not the Rapunzel. Art style. Is the art style consistent with the rest of the designer's body of work? A shop having more than one style isn't automatically suspicious, but it's worth a closer look. When a shop has hundreds of listings and clashing styles, that can be a red flag. Look at this shop page. There's lots of copyrighted material, and these aren't even proper digital mock-ups. They're just JPEG images without being transposed onto hoops or fabric. This Beauty and the Beast pattern looks nothing like the image, her hand has completely disappeared, her face has no detail, and that sky is confetti hell. Look at their other listings and you can see the lack of consistency. We jump from smooth AI gnomes to RGB Disney collages to monochromatic watercolors to generated Hobbiton. Plenty of legitimate designers explore different styles, so style isn't a guarantee, but consistency and flavor is a green flag. Studio in Situ by pixel artist and stitcher Astrid is a great example of what a consistent art style looks like. Plus, they have images of stitched works, symmetry, and prices that reflect the value of the work. That's exactly the kind of stuff you want to see. Mockups. Do shops with an AI staging of the pattern mean the pattern is AI? Not necessarily. These types of images are called mockups. They are usually created in Photoshop or exported from a pattern making software. Using mockups doesn't automatically mean it's an AI pattern. Illegitimate shops only use digital mockups, but real pattern shops exist using digital mockups as well. Designers might use mockups if they're not happy with their photography, they want a consistent style across their listings, they haven't test stitched the piece yet, or they want to clearly show the details of a piece that a photo with perspective might obscure. While this isn't a red flag in and of itself, do check if the shop has a completed stitched piece included in the listing, or if they have other listings with photos. For example, Goth Stitch is a legitimate pattern maker. You can see the consistent features across her mockups, including fonts, motifs, and shading styles consistent but uniquely illustrated between the pieces. We can also see a photograph pattern, which is a bonus but not a necessity. To identify shops with digital mockups, look for this digital stitched effect in the photo, if the shop has the same pattern backdrop used for multiple listings, if the lighting and shadows don't match exactly, or if there's no personalized set dressing for the piece. For example, this shop, DearWitch, is an AI pattern mill. No stitched photos, the same mockup used across multiple listings, listings with 8 different mockups used for their images. This is AI, and this one isn't even cropped to a circle frame, and they're stealing art, and have 778 patterns in 10 months? Don't waste your money. Now, I do want to touch on shops that use AI mockups. This gets into pixel hunting territory a little, but if you can train your eye, your future projects will thank you for it. Take a look at these 4 mockups. 3 of them are AI. Which one do you think is the proper mockup? If you guessed the pumpkin pie, give yourself a pat on the back. The raccoon one is an artistic rendering of completed pattern. AI. From pattern mill HotStitchEnergy. Those aren't stitches, it almost looks more like rug tufting. In the second image of their listing, you can see what the mockup is supposed to look like. Can you make out the tiny X's? It still looks messy as hell, but at least it's on a grid. Ditto with this silly goose pattern. I can't believe I have to say this, but stitching isn't painting, and watercolor designs will not look like this on fabric. For what watercolors can look like on fabric, check out this kit by Loops and Threads. Now, this last one is interesting. This mockup is from the shop The Stab Shack. They posted some of their patterns using AI mockups on Threads, and people weren't pleased. Astrid from Studio in Situ left a comment as well, and the seller later DM'd her saying they would address the issues, and they did. The AI mockups are gone from their shop, replaced by proper mockups, and some stitch photos have even been added. Here's a comparison of this ghost piece with the AI mockup, the digital mockup, and the stitch finish. While initially defensive, the acknowledgement of the importance of accurate mockups is wonderful to see. To be crystal clear, a shop using mockups does not mean the shop is bad or using AI, but it can be a potential sign of a pattern mill. Mockups do not equal pattern mill, but a pattern mill equals mockups. Confetti. Is there confetti? No, not that kind. Cross-stitch confetti are stitches of a single color with no other colors nearby. Confetti can be a red flag for a poorly digitized pattern. Pattern mills don't typically bother themselves with cleaning up the pattern after the conversion. Case in point, look at these poor sardines. What have they done to my boy? There's confetti out the wazoo, and it just does not look fun to stitch. Compare it to something like this by Ludmila of MaxStitchesArt. It's symmetrical, the shading makes sense, and it looks like it would be a fun chart. However, like everything else on this list, confetti alone is not a surefire indicator of pattern mills or AI. Humans make confetti patterns too, especially with large, detailed, or realistic designs. Terrace, for example, is a celebrated cross-stitch designer known for her intricate fantasy patterns. Her patterns have a notorious amount of confetti. And not just confetti, but confetti blends. As user Rabbit Has a Cat said on Reddit, in the case of her Pegasus, just an all-blend, all-confetti pattern with heavy backstitching. My mom kitted that Pegasus for me in my youth, and it will haunt me until I die. In short, confetti is more of a warning sign to take a second look, rather than a guarantee of AI or pattern mills. Someone else's art. Is the storefront selling someone else's art? This one actually isn't the smoking gun that you think it might be. Some pattern designers have varied styles or licensed artwork from other artists. Licensed designs have the artist's name credited in the item description or on the listing images. This is how you can see shops with well-designed patterns in a wide mix of styles. This is also how you might see the same pattern listed twice. Sometimes it's not because someone has stolen the pattern, but because two shops are authorized to sell it, like the artist's personal store and a larger storefront. Looking at Unconventional Cross-Stitches store again, they do use licensed artwork. They pay artists a commission for the use of their artwork and are transparent about rejecting AI-generated works. You can see how having licensed artists increases the variety of pattern styles, from this Lithy pattern by Megan Majewski to The Favorite by Omar Ryan to Four of Cups by Rachel Quinlan. If the art is in the public domain, anyone can make and sell a pattern from it, such as this American White Pelican by John James Audubon, originally painted in 1836. However, that doesn't mean a converted public domain pattern will be a good one. Legitimate pattern designers fix confetti, refine colors, and make sure the pattern is stitchable. There are also dishonest sellers who create patterns from other artists' work without permission. This is art theft. If you're suspicious, it's worth checking. Reverse image search is your friend here. This review by Pan flagged a stolen piece of art from the shop DearWitch. It's a sardine can design with a mermaid. The mockups from DearWitch are pixelated in a manner indicative of a poor pattern, but if we take a screenshot of the piece, cropped as close as possible, go to Google image search and click search by image, upload that screenshot, and oh, look what we have here. That is a signed lino print. If we click one of these guys and follow this trail, we can find that this print was from Molly Stahl Designs. Look at her reviews and you can see she did in fact sell this, and they are limited prints signed by her. That takes 30 seconds to do when you're feeling suspicious about a pattern. I've linked Molly Stahl in the description, along with all the other human artists I've mentioned. Shop page. Does the shop page feel like a real person is behind it? Is there personal flair? Customized banners, a profile picture, featured message? None of these are necessary for a shop to be real, but it does lend credibility. Figure 1, Lola Crow, has a custom banner, custom logo, and a very personable about with some great photos and some details about herself. Her patterns have a consistent style with stitched images, appropriate pricing, and an appropriate quantity to shop age ratio. Green flags. Figure 2, Cross Stitch World Co. has no banner, a generic logo that doesn't even say their full name, no bio, their full about is cross-stitch patterns in full kits, and they don't even sell kits, no stitched images, and a lot of patterns for only operating for 3 years. That's a pattern mill. Active social media profiles are also a huge plus. Figure 3, The Witchy Stitcher storefront by artist Meg Black has a custom banner, a custom logo, and a personalized bio. Her patterns have a consistent flavor, appropriate pricing, and an appropriate quantity to shop age ratio. She is active on Instagram, posting stitch finishes, promos, and memes. Green flag. Figure 4, Pink Lily Patterns has a custom banner of AI images, an AI logo, no bio, and their full about is cute cross-stitch patterns. Their patterns are AI, have no stitched images, priced inappropriately, and have an inappropriate pattern quantity to shop age ratio. They are active on Instagram, but only by posting AI slob collages. That's a pattern mill. Hallucinations. Finally, look for things that don't make sense. Do all humans and animals have the right number of arms, legs, and fingers? Do they bend in appropriate ways? Do they morph into something else? Are there buildings or trees that are partly hidden behind something else and come out on the other side, looking different, or don't come out at all? Many pattern mill charts are just generative AI images run through a pattern converter. If you look closely at the details of an image, you might notice something that commonly happens in generative AI: hallucinations. Details that fade into each other in ways that don't make sense. Details and patterns are not repeated properly, and just weird AI sludge. Okay, an example. I personally don't get the gnome thing, but I see these smooth amorphous gnome patterns everywhere. Rattling off the things that stand out to me as I look at this image: his ears are going through his hat. That band wrapped around the bottom of his hat looks like a bandage, like his eyes got poked out. Why is the starfish going inside his hat? What is up with the hat? It's such a weird shape and so long. That doesn't look like lace. Why does the not lace morph into his hair? Why does his hat go through his nose? This tie on the side of his hat turns into lace. I have no idea what's happening with all these seashell motifs. This starfish has an extra leg. This one is broken? Are these eyes? This bead isn't even connected. Is that supposed to be a sand dollar? And something about that foot placement just looks so weird to me. Is it the lack of nails? The extra growth on the pinky toe? Who can say? For some eye bleach, let's look at a legitimate shop. This is not an AI gnome. This is a spring gnome pattern from My Lovely Embroidery NB by artist Natalia Batrak. The perspective, lighting, and musculature look right. He's got a cute little face, and we have stitched images, close-ups, and specialty stitches. This looks like it would be a fun pattern to stitch, although I still don't get the gnome thing. I'll share one more example. HappyLittleMouse by Alina and Terrace Pilipchuk is a shop that might raise some yellow flags. The banner and the logo are a little vague, but we do have an about and a bio. All the listings are mock-ups with no stitched images, but we do have legit reviews with finished pieces. Looking at a specific pattern, we can analyze the details. In this piece, the skeletal structure is considered. We've got defined metacarpals, we can count the vertebrae, the flower motifs are consistent, everything is nicely shaded, and the size to color ratio look good. This is a legit pattern. We can confirm that by looking at a second design. This floral bee is another great example of human work. Look at the considered dithering, the intentional colors, and the symmetry, plus a stitched finish with a positive review. That's a legitimate shop. A conspiratorial editor's note. I'm putting on my tinfoil hat here, but I think I found my first instance of AI-generated review images. Take a look at these. While I was trying to find some examples of extra janky AI patterns for this section, I found some examples from the shop Vibes Nest Ltd. I was pretty sure this was an AI pattern mill, but I was curious, so I checked the reviews. This Tree Spirits piece was the first one I clicked on, and I thought, well, at least the finish looks nice. I checked the next review and thought the fox looked a little funny, but my eye caught on the thread. It's not super common to leave a clump of loose thread on a finished piece. Also, who takes a photo of their finished piece all rumpled up? Next photo. More loose thread, and I don't think these stitches are even on the grid, and the proportion of the piece to the knees feels weird. Next. More thread and a needle poking through the middle of the finished piece. Next. My brain can't make sense of where all the strands of thread are supposed to be going. Next. This is the one that cinched it for me. The border is all melty, the thread is there again, and the stitches aren't on the grid. All of these are AI generated from bot accounts. Out of the 7 reviews with images, there's only one that has a real stitch finish from someone. Honestly, this makes me a little sick to my stomach. What do you think? Am I crazy, or do you see it too? How to identify legitimate shops? Are there any other ways you can identify human work? We've covered the major green flags and how to look critically at a shop, but some additional things you can look for are: do they show their progress? Designers often share their stitching or design process, videos, works in progress, or time lapses. Do they have close-up photos that show fabric weave or individual stitches? Artists want you to see those gorgeous close-ups while pattern mills try to obscure how jank their charts are. Do they include multiple angles of the same design? Remember, AI is terrible at recreating something exactly, so 2 photos of the same pattern from different angles is a great sign. Look for real textures. You might even spot human or feline hair stitched into the design. One other thing I'll note is that messaging a seller on Etsy with a question can help you vibe check. Etsy has a star seller program, which gives the shop a little purple star if you have above a 4.8 rating and respond to all messages within 24 hours. Most pattern mills will not respond, while most legitimate designers who want to foster communication will. Why isn't there a blacklist of AI shops? 2 words: witch hunts. The internet can be a bit funny when it comes to cancellations. It is really easy to demonize someone with too little evidence, and calling out the wrong shop could hurt a small business or independent artist. Legitimate pattern makers get caught in the crossfire and are harassed and reported. Once the damage is done, it's nearly impossible to undo. There's also the matter of maintenance. Pattern mills pop up and disappear constantly, sometimes rebranding under new names within days. A blacklist would be outdated almost as soon as it was published, and keeping it updated would be a full-time job. On top of that, not everything is black and white. A shop might use mockups but sell original designs. A shop might start out with human art and later switch to AI. I'm looking at you, Heaven and Earth Designs. Some designers experiment with AI tools while still doing heavy editing and curation. Where do you draw the line? Who gets to decide? Rather than a blacklist, it's better to give buyers tools to evaluate shops themselves, looking for photos of stitched pieces, checking for symmetry, reviewing pricing, and so on. Give creators the benefit of the doubt, ask questions if unsure, and assume good faith until proven otherwise. Is there a whitelist of human cross-stitch designers? There is no official whitelist, as the same points from the previous section apply. However, the r/crossstitch subreddit is a great place to look for human-made patterns. As we've seen, shops can change their practices over time, so it's always good to do your own research. Aside from all the green flag shops I've mentioned already, these are some of my favorite designers who are currently making human art. Badstitched. ChocoCocoStitch. CosmicNiko. FineFrogStitching. Green Terrace. Innocent Bones. Latroca. LichesAndStitches. Mathysphere. Mina the Ghostly Crafter. Misanthropic Stitch. Noctiflora Designs. Pixelins. Samantha Lane Textiles. Screaming Heart Design. Sewing Starfish. Stitchy Joints. The Stitch Crypt. Twisty Threads Designs. My own shop, KnotweedAndThimble, is 100% human-made art and patterns designed by yours truly. What if you accidentally bought an AI pattern? For those who have fallen for one of these patterns, don't feel bad. Pattern mills do everything they can to trick you into thinking it's a curated pattern. You do not have to feel guilty about your piece, and if you're enjoying it, then keep on stitching. There are so many shops out there, and it's easy to miss yellow flags. Is that shop using a mock-up because they're a small business? Or because they're churning out pattern mill junk? You might never know for sure. My advice would be to take it as a learning experience, leave a review or a social media post so others don't get bamboozled, and go forward with a keener eye for supporting real human artists. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. If you'd like more edutainment content, check out my previous video, Not Your Grandma's Cross Stitch, on the history of cross-stitch, samplers, and craftivism. The full list of sources and shop links is available for free on my Patreon. Happy stitching and have a great day.